You know, kids, I was reminded last week about doing things that feel good and about the power of small momentums. I think a lot of other people could use reminding too, you know? And I'll tell you all about it on the other side. Hello, you're listening to the John Huff Podcast. Oh, yay. Want to tell you about one of the all-time great physical feelings a person can have, okay? And it's Valentine's Day as I'm recording this, so I think you know where I'm going. Ho, 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 ho. It's the feeling some of you may have forgotten, if you're getting a little bit older, the wonderful, almost unbeatable feeling of pleasure that comes from taking off a pair of ice skates. Huh. I have not had this feeling in a long time, okay? I have not ice skated in several years, and probably only maybe 2 or 3 times in the past 20, all right? Ice skating, not a big part of my life anymore. I played hockey, not well and at the lowest possible level, as a boy. Played until I was about 14, was a mediocre player at the lowest level, okay? Not a great hockey player. My dad was a great hockey player. All right, that cat played like junior hockey as a goalie in the 50s, and there are spectacular photographs of the dude playing net with no mask on as like a teenager. Certain things have evolved, okay? But back in the 50s, that was the hardcore Iron Man stuff, okay? Dad, really great hockey player, a lot of potential as an athlete. Me, not so much, all right? But I did play the game for, 7 or 8 years as a kid. And the enduring legacy of that, which I'm pleased about and happy for, is that I can still skate, okay? I was never the greatest skater, but I can get on a pair of blades and I can skate around, and that's all good, okay? But I don't do a lot of that anymore for a couple reasons. A, it's cold, all right? Skating, even in your, indoor arena, heated arena, it's kind of cold. And I don't know, if you're not playing hockey, and I'll tell you right now, I have zero desire to play hockey whatsoever, all right? I quit playing when I was like 14, and I have never had the slightest desire or regret about that. Played some pickup with the boys, you do that, you get a little bit older, you rent the ice. Did that, that's fine. But, playing rec or pickup, like anything, I have no desire whatsoever. I do not miss hockey remotely. But I do like skating. I haven't done a lot of it. All right, the last time I went skating was like 5 years ago. My wife's work was hosting like a skating party for people. And we had not been on blades for years at that point. To the point where I took in my skates to get sharpened for the occasion. And I got this pair of like Bauer Challengers that I had when I was, a teenager probably, or soon after that. These are old skates, man. These are vintage. To the level where I took them in to get sharpened, and I took them out of the bag and I handed them to the guy, and the dude just started laughing out loud. Guy's like, I haven't seen anything like this in a long time. That's how you know you're getting up there, okay? When your hockey skates are considered vintage. Now, we're not talking about, like, from the 70s with, like, the open blades. You remember those? I think that would actually be kind of cool if you walk out onto the rink and you're wearing, like, a pair of 60s or 70s blades. That's vintage cool, But you're, like, black blades. Remember black blades from the 70s, 80s? They were, like, super cool at the time, And then I had the white blades. Walking out with those, not so cool as walking out with like a pair of vintage 50s skates. That would be pretty cool. Can't imagine what those would feel like. But I went, there was a skating party last night. Again, my wife's friends. It's all to do with my wife. She's the one with the active social life and the active work life. I'm just sitting here all the time, kind of churning, as my therapist would say. But her friends had a skating party. And if you're going to do that in February in Ontario, you're taking a bit of a gamble, friends. This is going to be an outdoor thing at this really lovely rink in L-Town, all right? And you are running a certain risk. And I got to tell you straight up, it has been stupid cold all winter, all right? It kicked in like January, and it's just been a stupid cold winter around here. It's always cold, don't get me wrong, but it seems to be like this persistent, just frigid. As I speak now, the sun is outside, and that always helps, all right? That helps. The sun is out. The last time I checked, it was like minus 29 with the wind chill, all right? For you Europeans out there who are listening, you know, I don't know how to describe minus 29 wind chill to you, but it ain't fun, all right? And it certainly ain't fun, you would think, to skate around in that sort of thing. That's what we were walking into last night. Now, when this was announced, my wife and I thought we would get out the blades, you know, and we would go skating. But we took a look at our blades, with memories still fresh in my mind of being laughed at about mine. And we're like, you know what? Like she had a blade coming off, like it's done. Her skates are done. My skates probably are too. There's like a bit of rust happening on the blades, you know what I mean? It's not a good scene. So we went off a couple weeks ago out into the world to try and find used skates. And do you think you can find them? I mean, we walked into the first store and they're like, sorry, man, we got none. What do you mean you have none? We have none. Why do you have none? Because the only thing there is to do, since the C word, is to skate outside. And then they lifted the restrictions on outdoor rinks recently, and there was just a run on skates. I've seen people run on skates. That's very funny. Went to another place, and like they had used skates, but not a lot. Nothing in my size, and nothing that made sense financially. It was like, all right, you know what? We're just not going to skate. We're going to go to the skating event. We'll stand around with the other non-skaters. We'll drink the hot chocolate, maybe a little bit spiced, if you know what I mean. And we'll eat a beaver tail hot dog, and we'll say hello to people, and that'll be our thing. But when we arrived at the rink, it's an outdoor rink. It was all Christmas lights, and it was not like a big sheet of ice. It was like a path almost. It was a path. Like 3 loops, you know what I mean? Trees in between with Christmas lights on them. Very, very pretty. And I walked out there and I saw the people skating, and it seemed to me as though we were standing in a Christmas cartoon. And immediately I felt the impulse to just skate, man. And I knew that they had rental skates. I knew they had rental skates at this place. And I'm watching some of my wife's friends, who I suppose are also my friends now, skating around. And it just seemed so kind of Charlie Brown that I wanted a piece of this. Now, it was freaking cold out, man. And your feet are going to feel that. And I did not intend to skate, so I was not really wearing appropriate socks. The socks are important, kids. But I'm like, I want to skate. I'm watching people. I'm looking at the ice. I'm looking at the lights, the stars overhead. Very romantic, very pastoral. So I thought, I'm going to try it. So I went in and I says, hey, you got the rental skates? And the guy says, yeah. Put your mask on. And so I said, I need a 10. And he walks away and he reappears with an actual real pair of skates. I was thinking like bowling shoes with a blade on the bottom. You know what I mean? Like when you used to go to roller skating. I'm dating myself here, kids. Back in the 80s, roller skating was a big deal, okay? And it still should be, because it was dang fun. But you get the rental skates from the roller rink and be like, eek, I don't know if this is going to work, man. I was expecting that with the rental skates. I thought this could be a disaster. But the dude brought out a pair of skates. They were hockey skates. That's great. They weren't that old, apparently. They looked like real skates. I thumbed the blade. They were sharp, terrific. I put on the skates, and the second I put my foot in the first one, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I forgot about this part. I forgot about the part where skates are awful. All right? I don't know what Connor McDavid's wearing. I assume what he wears every night on the rink is a bespoke, custom, molded to his particular foot skate. Probably fits like a glove, man. Don't get me started on hockey gloves. At least from the 80s. So I put on the skate, and I'm like, oh yeah, skates suck, man. Skates hurt. They freaking hurt. But I put on the blades, I got them on both feet, got them nice and tight, nice and snug. Get out there on the ice, and it's just like riding a bicycle, man. It's just like riding a pair of skates. You did this enough as a kid, it all comes back. Took me a couple whirls around, but I started to feel the balance again. My ankles, my shins, they settled into where they belong. My feet eventually began to fit well enough into these skates, And then all of a sudden, I'm just skating. And I don't know, like an hour and a half, something like that, mostly. Just skating around, doing the circles, going around backwards without landing on my head, which has happened before. And it just felt really good. And then it's frigid outside, but it's a beautiful night, a beautiful scene, and you're skating, you're working up a little body heat, and all of a sudden, this just began to feel really nice, But for the first little while, I'm feeling my feet. And I'm remembering those early mornings in unheated rural hockey arenas and how dang cold your feet get, how much skates suck in terms of comfort, or they used to. And I'm thinking, this could be a problem, man. But it took probably, 30 times around this loop before my feet began to settle. I began to feel warm. I began to feel comfortable on the blades again, and it was just fun to skate. But at a certain time, my buddy says, I'm going to take my skates off. And I had the memory in that moment of how it feels to take the skates off. If you have not had this experience, it is so worth the suffering of being on the skates to actually take the skates off again. So I skated, knowing this was coming. And then I finally got off the ice. It was time. And I went down and I sat on the bench and I undid the skates and I took them off. And that is just about exactly the same feeling as descending into a warm bath. A lot of you haven't had that experience in a while. Maybe you had a hot tub. You're one of the lucky ones who has a hot tub. You know that feeling, especially if your hot tub's outside and it's wintertime and you've made the little trek and you're freezing and then you disrobe. It's Valentine's Day. And then you just settle into that hot water. That is the feeling on your poor, aching, wounded feet of taking off those skates and then just letting your feet rest, on the rubber by the bench. And that is one of the great feelings of all time. And I had totally forgotten that feeling because I ain't been on skates in a long time. But the experience yesterday of skating and then taking the skates off makes me think maybe, just maybe, I'll look more diligently for a pair of used skates. Might not happen this year, maybe next year, I don't know. I mean, you skate all year round now. This exists, right? Kids are obsessed, and their parents, with the hockey. So they're playing hockey all year round. So you can skate all year round if you want to. Don't need a stick in my hand. Those days are over. But skating was fun, and taking off the skates was dynamite. So if you have not had that experience or haven't had it in a while, I highly recommend going and putting on a pair of skates and then skating around outside where it's freezing and your feet are frozen just for the experience of taking them off. Wonderful feeling, man. And it was a timely feeling because I've needed to feel wonderful, And I've been talking to people and I've been listening to people out there and they need to feel wonderful too. There's a lot. I thought I was the only one. One of the things about the pandemic and the isolation that we've been going through is that you lose connection in certain senses with how other people are feeling. You have this sense of isolation, especially if, like me, you are what we'll call self-employed. You're not super connected to other people at your work. You may not be having all that much of a social life anymore. You can lose the sense of connection to other people, and you can lose the connection and the sense of shared experience, right? So I've been sitting around for weeks, man, since the turn of the new year, kind of struggling with a pretty low mood. Minus 29 does not help, but the sun does. And I've been feeling a bit low. I've been feeling super unmotivated. I've been struggling very hard to get up the enthusiasm. I've been saying to people that my enthusiasms are somewhat diminished. And they have been. It's been difficult to dig into playing drums because there are just not really shows on the horizon. Got word of another local venue closing shortly. That's since the C word started. That's probably 4 or 5 in a scene where there are like 7. So it's dire, man. There hasn't been much to play towards. I've had really a lot of trouble digging back into the podcast and knowing what to do. There's been enormous resistance there. Maybe I'll talk about that shortly. I've been stuck in a low mood. And the thing about low moods is that they perpetuate, right? Like the longer you're in the low mood, the more the low mood pulls you down even lower. And I've been struggling with this, and it's been difficult to feel good, but I've been out in the world in the last week or so talking to people and discovering that I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people in this low mood, and what I find really compelling is that there are a lot of people, it seems to me, who are really struggling with the motivation. The enthusiasms are diminished, and I'm not talking about the motivation to chase the dream, the motivation to do whatever. I'm talking about very simple motivations to do very simple, normal, mundane things. Like the easy stuff. People are having trouble doing that. People are having trouble, something as simple as maybe even just brushing your teeth. They're like, can't be bothered. What's the freaking point? What's the freaking point seems to be the underlying question through these times. I have struggled mightily with what's the freaking point. And one thing that the C word has done is bring this into perspective. What's the point of doing anything? And once you get on that train, but it's a train going downhill, once that's a train to a dark place, man, that picks up a lot of momentum. If you're one of the people who's into the vibration thing, that pulls your vibration down by cycles. And if you buy into that rhetoric, if you accept that framework, once you start vibing low, it attracts more low, man. And it just pulls you lower. A lot of people struggling with basic energy, basic desire to do anything. I thought I was the only one. Turns out it's a lot of people out there. And so it's important to feel good, right? And one of the things I want to talk about on what's likely to be a fairly short episode today is this concept of small momentums, okay? Now, I've spent the last 5-6 weeks in a pretty low place, really struggling with resistance to what's going on with this show, really struggling to find the motivation to do anything because I'm not seeing any real purpose, man. And once you get stuck in this kind of rut of not doing things and not seeing the point of things, that momentum pulls you down. And what I've discovered is that one of the great ways to pull the momentum back up is to simply do things, small momentums, okay? So what that means for me is taking care of a couple of very small, simple household tasks that I've been avoiding in a couple cases, for like years. So there's been stuff around the house that's been bothering me, stuff that's needed repair. I'm not a handy person, all right? I am not a handy person. I not only do not enjoy tools, I actively fear tools, all right? I do not work in this realm. Some people are amazing, all right? I got friends who can literally build you a room. It's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's rip everything apart and put it back together. What? I got all the tools. I know people who have all the tools. I got a hammer. I can't nail straight. All right? You know what I mean? I'm good at taking nails out. Can't put them in. I'm a tearer down, kids, not a builder up. You know what I mean? In a physical sense. There have been a couple things around my house that have just been weighing on me because they needed doing. There's like a heat vent in the wall, above the baseboard. There's just a vent there. The ductwork comes out, blows the nice warm air or the cool air into the living room. And one of the screws, it's not sticking in the wall properly anymore. All right. Things are beginning to disintegrate. House is getting a bit older. This sort of thing begins to happen. And so one corner of the vent is loose. You're going to pull it right out from the wall. Bothers me. And then in the kitchen, we got this closet door, the pantry door where the doorknob broke. And so we took off the doorknob and I went out and I bought another doorknob. Ain't bothered to put the doorknob on. This is a couple years we're talking about that thing's just been sitting there with no doorknob on it, door handle, and a perfectly good door handle sitting in a package beside it. Can't be bothered, not my thing, not really my interest, but I note that this weighs on me and it irritates me. So if you got little irritations in your life, they're gonna pull the vibe down, man. And if you can do something about them, it's like taking out heavy stuff from your balloon. You know what I mean? And so I've been in this low mood. I've been really struggling, but I've known in the back of my mind that if you can start to gather small momentums, you can begin to lift that mood. And so the first thing I did was take a look at what's going on with this vent, realizing that all we probably really need is a new wall plug, just a plastic wall plug. Screw that thing in so that it's secure, and it goes downstairs. And don't we have some wall plugs? So I gets out my screwdriver, I looks at it and I says, screwdriver, you don't like me and I don't like you, but I'm in a low mood. We got to fix this thing, all right? And so I screws in the wall plug and I screws in the screw and voila! Success! We fixed the vent cover. Then I turns my eyes to the door handle, okay? This is a more sophisticated job for somebody like me. And so I take out the pieces. I'm like, okay, I'm not mechanically inclined. I don't work well with patterns. I don't work well with shapes. But I see how this thing goes together. Let's put it in. Then I realize this is an old door, and the door handle that I've purchased don't really fit in the holes that exist in the door, all right? There's a different length of the mechanism, whatever. It's going to take some work to get this thing done. It's like, uh-oh, that's going to mean tools, man. Tools are not my thing. So there's a drill downstairs, cordless drill, nice one, Mastercraft. I brings it up. I'm like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to jump in. I got to make the one hole bigger so I can fit the thing. These are the technical terms. And it ain't working because I ain't got the right tools, all right? I need a hole maker. Need a hole maker. So I call up my buddy who has all the tools, who can build a house for you. Says, I need a hole maker, man. You got a hole maker? Of course he's got a hole maker. This is an attachment that goes in your drill that digs out what I needed, which was a 1-inch hole. Bring it home. Oh, I didn't tell you the part where I got out the drill ready to go and it lasted about 4 seconds because the battery was dead. Needed to be recharged, man. Needed to be recharged. And isn't that a metaphor for all of us right now? Recharged the thing, got the hole maker, drilled the hole. That for me is a victory, man. That's my Super Bowl. Drills the hole, slides in the mechanism. Beautiful. Now we got to put the handles on either side of the mechanism so that when you turn them, it pulls the little nubby back in and out. Technical terms only here today, all right? And so I puts in the two pieces, the front and back of the handles, and dang it, if the big hole where the handles go ain't the right size. It's the right, well, no, it's not the right size. It does not fit and it's not in the right spot. Need to make another hole. Gonna be a bigger hole. Uh-oh, can we do that? Calls up my buddy, says, I need to make a bigger hole. Have you got a hole maker? He says, yes, I do. And I got clamps, and I got a board, which has like the template for you. Just drill right through it. Long story short, managed to make a bigger hole, managed to hook up this door handle. And man, when that closed, the first time I closed that door, it was the same feeling as taking off a pair of skates, man. Just this gentle click shut. How beautiful, how peaceful. And then all of a sudden, this took a couple of days to get all the holes made. But in the space of a couple of days, I got 2 things off my list that have been bugging me for years. Got that vent cover fixed, got a door handle on that cupboard door. All of a sudden, my vibe is rising, man. Just accomplishing a couple of silly, niggling things can give you a sense of forward momentum. These are little momentums, okay? It can be something so simple as cleaning up that bedroom that's been bugging you, or sorting out your clothes and giving some of them away to Goodwill, or cleaning up your closet, right? Or, wiping down the kitchen floor. Whatever it is that you've been avoiding but has been in the back of your head for days or weeks or months or even years in my case, these are small momentums. If you just knock these things off the list. You know what I mean? And it's something that I'd forgotten, but it's very, very important. If you find yourself in kind of a low mood, if you find yourself lacking motivation, if you find your enthusiasms diminished, applying yourself to these small little tasks and knocking them off your list is a great way to start ratcheting up the momentum, the vibration, the mood, man. And if you get into something technical, like in my case, a simple door handle, which takes 3 days to fix, you pull yourself out of that low headspace. Because if you're like me, when you're in the low headspace, you're just lost in thought. You churn. It's like a vortex in there, and you're just going round and round and round and round. And if you're in a low mood, chances are those are low thoughts, all right? Those are probably depressive thoughts. Those are probably blaming thoughts. Those are probably hopeless thoughts. And I reached a point of hopelessness, man. I began to look around me and see everything as so bleak and hopeless that it's like, what is the point of going on? What is driving your energy? What is the point? If you begin to churn in those low thoughts, they just perpetuate. They just create lower thoughts, and then those lower thoughts become your reality. You take a look at the world you're in, and all you see is lowness. So doing these things and applying yourself to like a mechanical task can pull you out of those low thoughts because you stop thinking them. Suddenly you begin focusing on solving a problem that's in front of you. In my case, the holes weren't the right size, so they weren't in the right spot. You begin to attack and engage a different part of your brain, a different part of your mind that is a problem-solving part, right? It's one that's constructive. It's one that's looking to learn. It's one that's accomplishing something. And that has a weird, interesting effect of just kind of obliterating the lowness. It pulls you out. You stop thinking about it and begin thinking about a different thing, especially a thing that is positive and problem-solving and constructive. Suddenly, your vibe lifts out of this low place into a higher place, and then you accomplish something in that higher place. You fix your vent cover. You fix the door handle in your kitchen cupboard, and suddenly you find yourself in a more constructive headspace and having accomplished something, and then you knock a couple things off your list, and that lightens everything. Cleaning up your space can have a profound positive vibrational effect. It's stunning. I've done this. Things have existential weight, man. If you got a lot of things crowding up your space, crowding up your living room or your bedroom or your kitchen, whatever, clearing those things clears existential weight. I'm not making this up, man. This is legit. When I cleaned up my office space, and I put up some art, the sense and the energy and the vibe in that room was utterly transformed. And you become the vibe you sit in, man. you adopt what's around you in a lot of cases. So if you create a cleaner space, a lighter space, you create a cleaner inside and a lighter inside. Knocking things off your list, especially the low-hanging fruit, can really lift the mood, man. And once you get out of the mood, then your enthusiasms begin to come back, I think. Because if you're feeling hopeless, then what is the point of anything? And if you're feeling low energy, and if you're feeling low vibe, and nothing is working for you, and nothing will work for you, and what's the point of it all? That's going to be your reality, and that's going to be what comes back, and then it just perpetuates. And then you get to feel this kind of sick satisfaction of feeling lousy. That's a real thing, too. I've felt it, man. That becomes your identity. The poor, broken loser. That's me. That's been me many times. It was me recently. Then, if you can just push through the resistance, push through and fix the door handle in your kitchen pantry that's been off for 2 years, it changes things. It shifts vibration. It shifts you to a different part of your brain. And that will lift you out of this thing, man. Now, it's easy to think your way back in, but if you can pull yourself out, there's a relief in that. Again, it's like taking off the pair of skates. It just feels good. It feels good to accomplish even small things, and these are small momentums. The thing about small momentums is that they can accrue like a snowball, and they can gather into much bigger momentums, you know? This resistance thing is real, okay? And I've been fighting it hard with respect to this podcast. Like, really fighting it. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't know how to do this. I don't know what the point of doing this is. You know, and then you get stuck in that rut, and then the rut perpetuates. Enormous resistance, particularly around the notion of having guests. This is where it gets profound, man. I've had enormous resistance about this notion of having guests because I wasn't doing that anymore. I had shifted into a solo format because I felt like that's what I wanted to do, you know? And then I felt this resistance and I didn't know what to do with it. I couldn't recognize whether this was an ego thing, whether this was an intuitive thing, whether I should have guests again or not have guests again. And there's a sequence of events leading up to where I'm going. But we had Kay Howell on last week, right? And that turned out to be a really terrific episode because Kay's awesome. And she's my friend, and we had a fun conversation, but also a poignant conversation, and a deep and a dark one, and a heavy one, you know, with a positive momentum at the end, right? And I resisted so hard having a guest, but, you know, I kind of set the universe up to lead me to places. I said, if you do this, then I'll do this, and if this shows up, I'll do this. And there was a sequence of things, and you may or may not go for signs, you know, that's up to you. However, you know, whatever floats your boat, man. It worked out that Kay came on. I surrendered to this notion of having guests again. And guess what happened? Kay and I delivered a great episode. I think it was a really good episode. A really learning episode, and an educational and an entertaining one. Had a good vibe, man, despite some of the dark material that was in it. I began to get feedback in the sense that I haven't had it in a long time. You know, I had people writing to me to say, wow, that conversation was terrific. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed Kay. And of course you should really enjoy Kay and go listen to her music, man. Pink Trees, the album. This feedback came in from a lot of places, how much they enjoyed that conversation, how much people were lifted by it. I want to single out the great Adam Stanley. Adam is a multi-instrumentalist, drummer in the UK. Long-time listener, really, really great dude. And go and follow him on the Instagram, okay? Adam Stanley Drums. He's got a lot of great drum stuff up there. He writes and records all of the parts for really cool rock and roll songs. Really good dude, terrifically talented player and writer, and a really good guy. And he sent me an unsolicited voice message. Hope you don't mind me singling you out here, Adam. But he sent me a voice message that was very affirming, you know, talking about how effective the conversations can be. And, you know, I've felt kind of a pull towards that, or a push towards that happening over the last little while. I've resisted it hard, and I don't know if that's an ego thing. I don't know if that's an intuitive thing. I have been reluctant to have guests, but then I have one who turns out to be terrific. And the feedback comes that says, dude, there's something in these conversations that's really valuable. There's some alignment in these conversations, and you should probably consider, riding that momentum. There's something in the way that you and your guests talk that has a bit of magic in it, maybe. I've resisted that, but then you do it, you push through that resistance, and it bears an unexpected kind of fruit, man. And it was really nice to hear from people that they were so inspired by what Kay had to say. And they were just simply entertained by the conversation between two friends. I had other people tell me that it felt like they were sitting at the table with us. That's a very gratifying thing, And I was really just grateful, super grateful to Kay for coming on the show, and very, very grateful to all of the people who wrote in to say how much they enjoyed it. That's very affirming, man. It's very, very affirming. And I've been looking for affirmation on the direction of this thing. I've had to surrender some ego. Ego doesn't want to take a back seat. Ego doesn't want to give the microphone to somebody else. That's a thing I've been struggling with. Not necessarily ego in that presentation, but ego more generally, and being acknowledged and wanting to be special and, wanting to be kind of the center of attention without being it. Very, very strange, But if you push through these resistances, the resistance to do whatever little small mundane task, because I know that resistance very, very well, my friends. I freaking live in it. But if you can just push past it, commit yourself to that thing that takes 10 minutes. Or commit yourself to 10 minutes of the thing that takes half an hour. Just begin to gather these small momentums. You can find that they will snowball and create a bigger momentum, And there's a sense of relief that comes with that. One of the things that's most vital, I think, for human happiness and fulfillment is a sense of purpose, a sense of working for something. Now, people look at that and they think it has to be some grandiose thing. Well, I guess I have to write a novel or a screenplay or an album or whatever, and that's working for something, and that's a sense of purpose. 9! I say 9. Simply cleaning up your space is a positive action and can be purpose, all right? Gather small momentums, watch them accrue into bigger momentums. Now, my deep, dark mood that's been settled on me, like the polar vortex for like 6 weeks, has to a large part lifted. Partly because I tackled those couple of small things and got a couple things done. And those two little momentums accrued together into a slightly larger momentum. And then I pushed through the resistance that I've been feeling to do a guest episode. But I did the guest episode and it was really good, and the feedback was really uplifting, man. Suddenly, like Kay talked about, weights going out of her balloon. You begin to lift, and when your vibration begins to lift, you begin to think higher vibration thoughts, and you begin to accrue higher vibration reactions. You can churn in the other direction. That's the thing with my little drill. You can churn in both directions, man. The question is whether you're churning up or churning down. I don't know if that's working. I don't know if that description of things is working. But what I'm saying is small momentums gather. They gather up, they gather down, right? So if you find yourself beginning to, lose yourself in dark thoughts and avoid doing those simple things that are easy to get done and will help you, you gather momentums in that direction. But if you begin to not so much indulge the dark thoughts and push through the resistance to do even the little small things, you begin to accrue momentums in the opposite direction, in the higher direction. And where you go will dig you deeper or will take you higher. This is not so much easy to do, man. That resistance is dark and heavy and powerful. appearing, but it's a phantom. So don't say life is hopeless and going nowhere because I'm not writing a novel. Fix the heat grate. Fix the vent cover in your house. Fix the door handle in your kitchen closet. Forget about a novel for now. Let's get ourselves up to a basic level of vibe. You know what I mean? Let's pull ourselves out of that deep, dark headspace with small momentums and then watch them gather. Is that making sense? Am I beating a dead horse now? Am I beating it? Where did that term come from? Who was beating a dead? I don't want to know. Let's not get into dark thoughts, all right? It'll just pull you down into animal cruelty. Don't want to go there today. Want to offer small, forward, positive momentums, okay? So do that. Go put on a pair of skates, just so you can take them off later. Look at what in your life is bugging you. Little things, little tiny things that are easy to get done or to fix or to do something about. And if you're feeling hopeless, if you're feeling the momentum pulling you down, you can reverse it by just simply pushing through a little bit of resistance. Commit yourself to that one little task. You know? You don't have to do all the things on the list. Just do one. Watch a small momentum begin to gather, okay? It can have profound effects. And I think there's a lot more people than I realize who are stuck in the same kind of headspace that I was stuck in. Very, very easy to do right now, man. There's a lot of chaos happening in the world. And we're watching what's going on in Ottawa. Why do I go onto Facebook? I go onto Facebook, occasionally because I need to do podcast stuff. I do have a presence there that I need to maintain. But man, oh man, you're on Facebook for 14 seconds. And there's just a fight happening. I know I've talked about this before. I don't need to talk about it again. But what a drag, man. People are angry. People are despondent. People want to lash out at somebody. People need an enemy. When you've got this kind of anger inside you, when you've got this low mood happening, you want to fight with somebody. You want it to be somebody's fault. And social media makes it so easy to fight with people. Makes it so easy to take a stand, It doesn't help. Maybe there's like a temporary relief in the release of yelling at somebody online, but it doesn't help. It just churns momentum downwards, It accrues more of itself. If I go onto Facebook, there's like 10 seconds and there's a fight and there's people, it's just like, man, I'm checking back out again. And so that's what I'm doing. Drop on, do what has to be done for the podcast, get back out again. Trying to avoid Instagram for the same reasons, but I got to be on there to do what I do with the podcast. But try to avoid this stuff. If you're feeling this anger and hopelessness, try to channel that in a more creative way. And the way to do it is to look at the small, tiny little things that need to get done that have been bugging you. Push through whatever resistance is blocking it. It is a phantom. And then watch what happens when you begin to get those things done, okay? It can have a profound effect. Not going to say much more today. I know I didn't say anything about music. I am going to tip you off to something you should go and check out, all right? There's a band from deep in the heart of Texas called Peace and the Chaos. Now, if you are a Galactic Cowboys person or a King's X person, you know about Peace and the Chaos because it features Dane Saunier of Galactic Cowboys on guitar. Great guitar player. Very, very cool band, all right? They're a little bit under the radar, but if you're into that King's X vibe, Galactic Cowboys vibe, I've been listening to them a little bit. I'm picking up a bit of Alice in Chains. I'm picking up, weirdly, a bit of Creed, like kind of modern rock vibe. Some of their more recent stuff is drifting into a bit of a soul vibe or a blues thing. Anyways, Peace in the Chaos, they have a full-length record out, self-titled. They have an EP out as well from 2018. That is called Me and My Black Heart. I haven't listened a lot to that, but I'm beginning to dig into it. Anyways, they dropped a song very recently, like within the past week or so, called Control. Very, very cool. Kind of an Alice in Chains vibe. Great guitars. Dane's a great player. Great guitar sounds. Me and guitar tones, man. Just a very, very cool rock and roll band that you probably have not heard yet. So go check out Peace and the Chaos, all right? Very, very cool band. I'm thinking now about where we go from here. I am lining up other guests. I feel the momentum's beginning to drift in that direction, and I don't quite know what's going to happen. I've kind of committed myself to a little experiment, doing some more guest episodes, seeing what's aligned, seeing what floats, seeing what feels good, seeing what just works. I talked about this notion of floating before. Got this from the great Jeff Thompson. This concept of seeing what floats in your life, meaning what works easily. There's no resistance. There's no fighting. It just floats. It just works. And if the guest thing begins to work and it feels aligned and it feels like it floats, I'm going to head more in that direction because I really enjoyed the feedback I got. And it seemed like people really, really liked it, And that doesn't mean I can't do solo episodes, but the emphasis may change a little bit. I've got a concept in mind of how things could be much different structurally. I don't know how that's going to go. I've committed myself to just doing a little run of guest shows, seeing how that feels, seeing what the feedback is. And then there may be some profound changes. I don't know. We're just going to see what happens, okay? Because I want this show to be as effective as it can be, and I want to play to my strengths, which sometimes means shutting down your ego and realizing what they actually are. And if that's hosting and interviewing and having conversations, then that's super cool, man. Got to be cool with that. And ultimately, I want the show to be effective for you, the listener, right? So I would appreciate your feedback. You can message me via Facebook, the John Huff Podcast Facebook page, or my Instagram site is JW_Huff, John Huff Podcast. Those are the two social media presences I maintain. You can message me that way and let me know. Let me know if you dig the solo style, if you like the conversations, what sort of conversations you like, what sort of solo style stuff you like. Whether you're into the histories, whether you're into this kind of hodgepodgey thing I'm doing today. I'm curious about your experience of this program because ultimately it's about you, the listener, man. So please do drop me a line. Please do give me a follow on those sites. And, ratings and reviews are always still welcome, kids. I'm not going to harp on this. Wherever you listen to fine podcasts, it helps me profoundly to have a rating from you. A review is lovely. I got one from KT Pasco recently on iTunes. And Katie, thank you so much for that. I do appreciate you listening. That's Katie of Fresh Breath. Go listen to Fresh Breath, a band that is a married couple primarily, but every now and again they put a full band together, and that includes me and Ken the Zen, the dream team on rhythm. Great band, really wonderful people. Go listen to Fresh Breath. Thank you, Katie, for that review. And I am going to ask you, again, just drop me a little review. It helps. Not going to push much further with that. I'm going to shutting up soon because, man, we're sneaking up on an hour somehow. Let me know what you like. Let me know your thoughts about drifting back into more conversations. I feel the push going in that direction. But, I'm open to suggestion from all of you. Listen to Fresh Breath. Listen to Peace and the Chaos. I watched a live War on Drugs. The show was canceled last week in Toronto. Broke my cockles. And so instead, I sat down in front of my super giant smart television set and I pulled up the War on Drugs live at Madison Square Garden. This was filmed by somebody in the crowd a couple weeks ago when they played MSG, man. That's the Mecca. I want to do that. War on Drugs, touring on I Don't Live Here Anymore. And I just sat back and watched the whole 2 hours as though I was at the show in lieu of actually being at the show. And it was wonderful. The angle of the recording was such that I could spend a lot of time looking at what Charlie Hall was doing on drums. Charlie's like my favorite these days. Very cool experience, great band. So if you're looking to kill a couple hours on a Friday night, the War on Drugs live at Madison Square Garden is really just great. An excellent band playing excellently. You know what I mean? Gonna shutting up, gonna get going. Got some irons in the fire for guests, so we'll see how that plays out. And I don't know, check back in next week and see where we're at. And until then, I'll check you later. Yeah. Hey, if you didn't listen to the K-Howl episode all the way to the end, you oughta, man, because after the door closes, we sang a little song for you.